Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Education, SOE, Master's Degree Programs, Master of Arts, Distance Education, MADE, First Year. MDE411 Growth and Philosophy of Distance Education. Block 5 Growth and Innovations. Unit 8, Developing Improved Strategies Towards Better Student Support Services. Stage. V.S. Prasad traced the experimentation and innovations that are very important in open and distance education since the education through distance mode is new. Diversified means and methods have to be employed for extending effective support services to its learners in the open and distance learning. He strongly felt that learner support services are essential element, but not a supplementary tool. Universities provide more direct services to its learners by providing effective learner support services. In this write-up, the emphasis that the learner support is mostly related to affective domain activities rather than cognitive domain and mostly related to mindset of the people who render services to its isolated learners. Introductory remarks. I am grateful to the Indian Distance Education Association for honoring me with the privilege of delivering keynote address at the annual conference. I have no claims for any superior wisdom in this field. Based on my long association with this system as a practitioner in various capacities and as a critical observer of social phenomena, I venture to make a few observations for the consideration of the members of this professional body of distance educators in India. These observations are more the expressions of self-understanding and loud thinking. This, I think, is one of the main purposes of any annual conference of professional bodies. Distance education, an essential form of education. Distance education is a product of the convergence of two kinds of streams. A. The educational vision of realizing human potential and the technological vision of liberation from space and time constraints. It is one of the most important educational innovations of the 20th century, though the beginnings can be traced to earlier periods. Those of us who are very fond of tracing every successful modern idea to our ancient wisdom could claim Ekalavya as a first distance learner. The establishment of the British Open University in late 60s and its successful functioning during the last few decades gave legitimacy to distance education as a desirable form of education. Harold Wilson, the former Prime Minister of UK, who was instrumental in the establishment of British Open University, once, when asked what significant contribution he wishes to be remembered for, replied that he most wished to be remembered for as the founder of Open University. G. Ram Reddy, pioneer of distance education in India, rightly observed that the system is needed more for developing countries. Distance education, known by different nomenclature, is not only considered a desirable system, but also become an essential form of education and training for development. Traditionally, the conventional education was considered a mainstream educational activity and distance education a supplementary or an additional mode to attend to the educational needs of particular target groups. This is considered an essential component of education system whose scale of operations are very large, adopting varied methods and systems to serve diverse purposes. Today, in 107 countries in the world, there are 1086 distance education institutions offering 28,295 courses in science, technology, social sciences, humanities and whatnot. As distance educators, we can feel happy and proud that we are participating in a very useful social activity. Paradigm shifts in education, momentous changes are taking place in all walks of life. Education as a subsystem is also influenced by these social changes. Historically, some of the paradigm shifts in education are: 1. Education as a privilege to education as a right. 2. Teacher-centered institution-based education to learner-centered home-based and workplace-based education. 3. Community-supported education system to state-supported education system to market-driven education system. And 4. Education as one-time activity to education as a lifelong activity. The open and distance education is a response to these paradigm shifts in education. Any discussion on mission and methods of distance education should take these paradigm shifts as benchmarks for analysis and understanding. Developing improved strategies towards better student support services, the theme of the present conference, should be explored in the context of open and distance education paradigm. Learner-centered approach. The learner-centeredness is considered an important defining character of distance education, like people-centeredness in democratic policy and consumer-centeredness in capitalist market systems. The learning process is to be designed keeping in view requirements and the conveniences of the learner. The technology mediation helps in overcoming the space and time limitations and design educational processes based on learned needs. The YCMOU brochure entitled Liberating the Learner aptly expresses the philosophy of distance education. The student support services are considered an essential component of distance education, which makes it different from private appearance. All the services provided to the learners, other than the learning materials, are considered support services. Mariam Craft. Methods of support services. In India, we find quite a divergence in the methods of providing support services by distance education institutions. The pattern followed by most of the CCIs presently DDEs are: A. The support services are mainly related to subject-based tutorial services, personal contact programs, and B. The services are more in the form of one-time contact group services. The pattern followed by most of the open universities is: A. The support services are structured as a continuous activity. B. The support services are provided through the institutions popularly known as study centers, and C. The support services include subject-based tutorial services and system-based services. Influenced by the experience of open universities, most of the CCIs have also adopted study center approach for providing support services. For an overview, we may identify a few important features of systems of student support services in India. These are: A. The services are mostly delivered through study centers, work centers, regional centers. There are variations in the structure and processes of these centers. Some institutions like IGNOU are trying to provide support services directly to learners through the print and other media. B. The services are more group-based than system-based. C. The services are more subject-based than system-based. D. The services are more structured and less flexible. Dimensions, issues and concerns. A. Student support services as an essential requirement. The student services as an essential requirement means proper budget allocation and appropriate organizational arrangements. It is not inconceivable then that many institutions may not provide adequate services on the plea of lack of sufficient resources. It is therefore necessary to identify the minimum services to be provided and the resources required for the purpose. The prioritization of service also helps the institutions to use the resources optimally. B. Balance between individual and institution support-based services. The philosophy of distance education demands more individual-based support services. How to individualize the mass media is one of the challenges faced by distance educators, as rightly observed by Sir John Daniel. The pragmatic considerations lead to providing the group-based services through the study centers. The institutions should make efforts to provide direct services to individual learners. C. Flexibility in providing services. At present, the open universities are following a more structured approach to provide the services. Keeping in view the needs of learners and nature of programs, diversified strategies may have to be used. The learners from disadvantaged social background and women may need special attention and services. Fee payment based on the capacities and services based on the needs should be the approach of distance education institutions. In designing the flexible structures, the pedagogic requirements and the diversity of learners' situations should be taken into consideration. D. Use of multimedia technology for providing services. At present, the subject-based services are mostly provided by the academic counselors, tutors at study centers. There is a need to use satellite and computer technology for providing more interactive support services. The IGNOU is using satellite and computer technology for certain programs. The IGNOU is also trying to experiment with multimedia learning centers. The cable TV network can also be used for providing services. Information technologies can be more widely used for providing more efficient administrative service and for dissemination of information. The fears that the technology used in distance education may drive away the poor from the system should be given due attention. The only hope is that as the technology costs are falling and the scale of distance education operations are very large, the developing countries may be able to use the technology more extensively, with the state playing a key role in the development of technology infrastructure. Here a word of caution may be appropriate to guard ourselves against technology fetishism. Technology, though very useful, cannot be an all-out solution for the problems of distance education. Technology is only a tool and its use should be guided by human choice of right values. A. Partnership arrangements. The distance education is considered cost-effective because of its ability to use the available infrastructure during the lean period. The support services are generally provided by using the facilities at existing educational institutions. The experience of sharing of the facilities is not always encouraging. There is a need to develop clear norms and patterns for sharing of facilities. The feasibility of developing partnerships with institutions with common objectives should be explored. The partnership arrangement can be entered with public organizations, community-based organizations and private organizations. In entering into agreements with private agencies, care should be taken to see that the learners are not exploited and the institution's name is not used for commercial purposes. The bilateral, multilateral MOU approach followed by public undertakings can be adopted for this purpose. F. User responsibility in providing services. The distance education programs as public goods serve the society in general and target groups in particular. The distance education has a rightful claim on the use of community resources for providing student services. The industry and other service sector organizations, both public and private, should actively associate in providing facilities to their workforce for pursuing distance education programs. The industry and government organizations in collaboration with open universities can undertake the tasks of updating the knowledge and skills of staff through distance mode. G. Ensuring optimal use of facilities. The experience of open universities and other institutions shows that only around 30 to 35% of learners are using the services. It is paradoxical that on the one hand we do not have sufficient resources to provide services and on the other hand the services provided are not sufficiently used. The causes for underutilization of facilities needs to be examined and appropriate strategies should be designed for the optimum utilization of services. H. Quality of support services. The underutilization of services may be because of poor quality of services. The quality of tutorial and counseling services need to be improved to motivate the learners to demand for more. The training of support service staff is necessary to improve their competencies, and feedback from the learners on the quality of services will help in designing more appropriate service systems. 1. Sharing of support services. The sharing of support services among the distance education institutions is necessary for optimum utilization of limited resources. Some of the services which can be shared are exchanging experiences in providing support services, sharing information on distance learning programs, materials on study skills of distance learners, collaborative staff training, tutorial and counseling services for common pool programs, teleconferencing services, library services, exchange of consultants, etc. Sharing of services is possible only if there is a paradigm shift from competitive ethic to collaborative ethic. Even in competitive situations, the problem today is defining the rules of competition. J. Development of study skills. The distance learners should have appropriate coping skills and strategies to pursue their learning through distance mode. The study of learning materials, time management, preparing the assignment require considerable effort and skills. Some distance learners suffer from Abhimanya syndrome, LR. They know how to enter open universities but do not know how to come out successfully. The learners should be clearly informed of what is required from them as distance learners before they join the program. Here the pre-entry counseling will greatly help the learners. The British Open University has prepared a student charter, which is given to every student on going to the university. It contains in detail what the university is, how the teaching-learning process takes place, what are the responsibilities of the student and what are his/her rights. This practice deserves to be followed by all distance education institutions. It is said that in the conventional system the students create problems to the institution. But in distance education institution creates problems to the students. The high expectations not matched by efforts and competencies may result in frustrations and unfounded dissatisfactions. The weak contractual relationship is one of the causes for the ineffectiveness of the system. K. The administrative arrangements. The implementation is the Achilles heel of all the programs. The grand designs may crash to ground if not properly implemented. The administrative efficiency of the institution is a critical variable in providing the services. There is a progressive decline in the work ethics of staff of public institutions in general, and educational institutions are no exception. From the performance criteria, the staff of public institutions can be categorized into 4 groups. A. The competent, but not committed. B. The committed, but not competent. C. Neither competent nor committed. D. Competent and committed. These are only analytical categories, neither absolute and exclusive nor fixed. The institution policies and actions must recognize and encourage the last category of staff, weed out the third category, train the second category to improve the competencies and motivate the first category to give their best to the institution. The institutional management practices must help in the development of the spirit of performance in the institution. But unfortunately, as Peter Drucker observed, most of what is called management consists of making it difficult for the people to work. We're trapped in a bundle of paradoxes, good employees trapped in bad systems and good systems destroyed by bad employees. The institutions require leaders with vision to resolve these contradictions. As the nations require politicians who have the political courage to look beyond the next election, the institutions require leaders who have the courage and conviction to look beyond their term of office. L. Globalization. The developments in technology made the national boundaries irrelevant in many spheres of activities. Death of Distance is the title of the special issue of The Economist, September 3, 1995, on telecommunication. Information technology will cut down lags in learning. Knowledge in a digitized form can be instantaneously diffused across the world. Today it is possible to download volumes of information from the internet, virtually and instantaneously. Virtual universities consisting of a market of individual suppliers of instruction pursued by consumer students paying prices determined by market forces is now technically viable. Many foreign universities are offering distance education programs in our country. In the context of resource crunch in higher education and self-financing approach for funding of distance education institutions, the student satisfaction may become one of the critical factors for the survival of the institutions. The global competition in distance education, it is hoped, will force the distance education institutions in India to provide better services to learners to survive in the field. M. The role of national and international agencies. The national and international agencies in distance education can help in sharing of information, experiences and resources. The Distance Education Council is facilitating the exchange of ideas by associating in organizing workshops and seminars on this theme. The DEC is also providing developmental assistance to state open universities to strengthen their support services infrastructure. Further, the Council is also encouraging research in this area by funding research projects of staff of state open universities on student support services. N. Need for experimentation. The distance education systems are in an evolving stage. Different models of support services should be tried in practice before evolving an appropriate model. Different organizational arrangements may have to be experimented with. The pilot project approach may be adopted to learn from the experience. Concluding remarks. I have tried to share some concerns in developing strategies for providing better services to learners. I am sure all of you are equally aware of some of these problems. I have done the job more like a traditional academic learner analyzing the problems. The solutions, I hope, will emerge from the practice, provided we are open to ideas and capable of learning from experience. I am reminded of a comment of a cynic who defined a conference as a meeting of individuals who individually cannot do anything and collectively decide that nothing can be done. As optimists, all of us have a responsibility to disprove the cynics. Let us hope that education as a creative human endeavor is capable of responding to new challenges. Thank you.